In this section, we're going to take a look at the solution to the events problem. In the last video, I told you that you could use an empty object right here to store all the different events that get registered with our events library. Let's first start off by working on the on method. So in the on method, we'll be given an event name as a string and a callback to invoke whenever that event is triggered. So I'll give myself a little bit of space here, and then we'll start putting this together. So I want to take this event name and add it as a key to the events object. Now that's pretty straightforward. We can reference something like this.events at event name, like so. We want to make sure that this will contain a value of an array. And if it contains an array, we should take this callback right here and add the callback to the array. However, we also need to consider the case in which this might be the first event that is added to the events object for a particular key. If that's the case, then there's probably no array here already, and we'll need to create a new array. So I think that we could use a simple if statement for that. We could say if some value already exists at this.events at event name, then there must already be an array there that we added. And so we can take this callback and push this callback into that array. So we'll say this.events at event name dot push callback, like so. Otherwise, if there's no value at this place in the object, then we must need to initialize a brand new array and add our callback to it. So else this.events at event name is going to be an empty array that contains only callback, like so. So now either way, whether this is the first time we're seeing this event or we've seen this event multiple times before, we will be creating a new array and adding the callback to it. Okay, so that's a good start. Now this is really the biggest challenge right here, is just understanding this part. The other two steps on here are pretty straightforward, so let's give those a shot right now. We'll first take care of trigger. So with trigger, we're given some event name. We can look at our events object at this event name key right here, and for every callback in that array, we can immediately call it. So let's write first an if statement to see if an array exists at the given key inside of our events object. So if this.events at event name exists, so if there is a value defined there, then we'll iterate through that array. And for that, we can use a simple for of loop, just like we've used many times in this course so far. So we'll say for let callback, which I'll abbreviate as CB, of this.events at event name, go ahead and call the callback. And that's pretty much it. So as long as there is some value there ready for us to iterate over it, and execute every callback in that array. Now when I save this file right now with the on and trigger methods defined, we should be able to go back to our tests running in the terminal and see much of them passing at this point. So we've got 4 passing, there's just 1 that is still failing. And that one test that's remaining is all about the off statement down here. So for off, we want to make sure that we deregister or remove all the existing events inside of our events object that corresponds with the given event name. Now there's 2 simple ways of approaching this. We could either do something where we maybe set that given event name equal to an empty array here. Alternatively, we could just attempt to delete that entire property off the object. And that's the approach that I kind of recommend here. So rather than saying, oh, well, this.events at event name will be equal to an empty array, that still leaves this empty array here that we're not making any use of whatsoever. And so another way of approaching this would be to use the delete keyword. So we could say delete this.events at event name, like so. And that will remove that entire key and the value that exists there, or that entire array of callbacks. All right, so let's save this and see how we're doing now. And so we've got all 5 tests passing. Awesome. All right, so the events library is a simple little problem, but it is the most common problem that I've probably seen personally in interviews. I've been asked this question many times myself. And it is a good question because it does kind of test your knowledge of these basic JavaScript concepts for some libraries that you are probably already making use of right now on a daily basis. So it is a pretty good question in that regard. All right, so that's good on this question. Let's take a break and then move on to the next section.